All right, yeah, we're back. Yeah, I'm starting to get into the aspect of taking this Taranis apart, and what I'm kind of finding is what kind of voltages are set on the switches and different configurations, and how I'm going to actually lay it out inside the cockpit. And if you take a look, I've already kind of separated out of the back of the case already just a little bit. I started labeling all these wires for each individual switches. Right here you've got your LED light that's in the back. That's going to be easy to take out. I've got something similar in the Turnigy 9XR that's in the cockpit already, but it's just going to be a minor little indicator. Yeah, everything else, I've labeled all these cable junctions in here, so I can go ahead and make sure that when I separate it from most likely one of these, I'll probably separate from this here, so that I can make sure that each one of these is already labeled to go onto the side, and this way I don't have any same size connectors going flip-flopped or mixed up or something. Other than that, you get pretty much all your switch functions right here. These will be really simple because all you have to do is just wire up an extension from each one of these switches here and going into each of the cockpit switches over there, as well as laying out a few extra functions for 3-position switches. I'll be laying in a few more on the somewhere along the cockpit layout. I'll show as I'm trying to drilling those out. Yeah, this will be good. But yeah, there's plenty of space in here to be doing a lot of creativity and everything else to figure out where I'm going to actually lay out everything. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to the next section here. All right, next step. Yeah, I've gotten it down to where I pulled the boards off the back side of the X9D transmitter. Not only peeled off all the wiring from the switches, I also labeled which pin plug they came off of for this main board right here. You get your center board for the power switch right here. You get your speaker, your LED on the back. Those I can take and put wherever I want. This right here, this is not only your RF board, it's also one with your PPM input, and you got your PPM jack, USB and audio cable. You got your S1 and S2 switches up here, and of course the locations like switch SH where the pin or the switch was pulled, as well as these right here. You got SC and SB, so all three of those were basically the ones that were pulled out. Now, as you can see how the thing's laid out, really nice and simple. Here's your main board right here. It's kind of strange. I found that these boards are not really susceptible to ESD as much when they're very resilient, but there you go, X9D. You get your battery right there for basically keeping your memory, and you got your switches right there. What I've been able to do before, like on the Turnigy 9XR, I'd take and actually solder extra wires going up to some of these switches, and this way I could take and then put them somewhere else inside the cockpit. But I think for clarity's sake, I'll probably keeping the switches right where they're at, and probably adopt the space plate here for making sure that I can go ahead and maintain the switch position to everything else, make it look a little more familiarized. I could probably make it look a little bit more like a cockpit instrument panel, but that's something to kind of figure out along the way. The other thing too is because these the joysticks and the trim switches, I've already got them integrated into here, onto not only the joystick here, but I've got the trim switches integrated onto the hat switch right there. I'll probably end up taking and integrating this plug right here and integrate it right into the section over there, so that it will end up connecting up to the hat switch and the gimbal, as well as the rudder pedals, which are going to be right down there, and of course throttle quadrant. Get all those connected into these particular inputs for each plug. Now I can also take the little trim switch and everything else for the throttle control and integrate it onto this the throttle quadrant as well. It's just a matter of just making sure all the wires are hooked up correctly. So this battery right here, I'll probably be replacing with a much bigger LiPo hooked in with the same plug, and then I'm going to take and run this switch up here, probably on a section right here in front of the cockpit. So, and this way, make it a little bit easier. Run it right next to the trainer switch and the main battery power I had with the other one. I might actually use that one for it, but I'd try and do what I can to make sure that this is unaffected as much as possible. If I need to extend any of these cables out at all, it's not really that hard. I just had to make sure I keep track of them. It's nice that they've got a little coating on each one, so I can make sure that whatever I hook it up to, it's going to be coming out the same way on the other side. So, all right. Next section, I'll probably go ahead and start digging into the cockpit wiring a little bit more, and then this way I can start taking it out and get it connected into each of the positions here. Yep, so moving right along. So all right, here comes the fun part of this build. In addition to taking apart the Taranis, I'm also starting to disassemble the wiring that's up inside behind the cockpit panel for the 9XR right here. Everything's all tied into the motherboard that's on the back side. I get everything for the joystick lines, all the wiring going for the rudder pedals, throttle quadrant. I got the flap handle. I've also got a switch, or basically a swivel, a rotator knob for both the collective and cyclic, and I also have another rotary up here, but I don't think I'm going to be using it. So I'm looking at slider 1 and slider 2, and then over here you've got the S1 and S2 over here, which is going to be replacing P2 and P3. This is P1 that I've got on here right now, and I'll also be able to incorporate a few other switches on here. Most likely I'll be putting in the throttle trim on one of these places up here, so this way I can go ahead and activate it from there. A rudder trim I'll probably have hooked up in a different location, but yeah, the mess of it is right back here, so you can see where the motherboard is. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I've got a lot of mixed up wiring that's going in through. I just need to take it apart, and I'll make the wiring a little bit more conformal. There's my inverter right there, the power up for everything. All the connections are going through these bus bars. I'm going to probably take and route them a little bit more conformal. What I want to do is take and label each one of those inputs and outputs, just like you do with a regular Navy aircraft, some of the older ones that I'm still working on, and make it a little bit easier to kind of identify which wires are going into which. So when I go to take and wire in the new potentiometer inputs from the joystick and all the other movements, rudder pedals and everything, this way it'll be a lot easier to identify. I have to go through there and ohm out and find out which one is which for each function, so that's going to be a little bit of a task. So I've got one not only here, but I've got a couple extras over here as well. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. All the rest of this wiring here, this all went in for the computer when I had it installed into the front section of the trailer. But I realize it's just a little bit too rough. I'm going to start running a laptop for the flight simulator now. But yeah, all these other functions over here, these all went to an Extreme 3D Pro joystick. The flat panel, or this gear switch right here, this I got out of an old EA6B Prowler. It was just a junk panel. I was lucky enough to kind of grab it. But all these go up to the Extreme 3D. These go up to the dual rate switches on the radio. And let me see, I've got this one going for, it's like a throttle cut, but also it enabled the auto trim. Who knows, I might be able to actually incorporate that on the Taranis if it's available. And this switch right over here, it enables the 12-volt access that goes up here in the front section. Yeah, you might be able to see it, but it gives me 2 extra USB ports and 2 extra 12-volt cigarette lighter adapter plugins. And I moved all the camping gear to the back side, so in this way I can just have equipment bays up in here. And a Yamaha subwoofer, so when I hook in the Taranis into that, sound will be coming through here. And I've got one of the speakers here, the other one's sitting over there just facing outwards, so basically it channels all the sound out. It's pretty good sound system when you're out in the field. But yeah, got myself a nice little seat cushion from a certain friend. Worked with some of the airplanes after they kind of wear out a little bit. But yeah, massage chair. I decided to go ahead and bring it back in. I got rid of that platform on here because it was just too uncomfortable. You'd sit up pretty high and then you wouldn't be able to get comfortable enough because your ass would basically get numb. So anyways, yeah, there's all the light switches and everything else. I've got one going to the back I can take and go ahead and light up everything behind there, or you change it over to red. And when I close up everything this way, it keeps everything nice and dark in here, but I can still see everything in here. So yeah, did that a little bit ago. Set up a bunch of LEDs back here. But yeah, it's all fully insulated up in here with a 1-inch pink foam, and I'm still trying to make sure it's going to be insulated. Because if I do it this way, and I can pull this seat out here, then I might be able to actually just lay a sleeping bag in here on long trips. So yeah, it'll probably work out all right. Other than that, now let's see how far I can get tonight. But all right, I'll keep the progress going. All right.